Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to turn complex data, mountains of it
Mm.
sometimes, into strategy you can actually use. Clear, actionable strategy.
Mhm.
And today, we've got a really crucial mission, especially if you're gearing up for the ACCA Taxation UK paper, TX-UK.
Right.
We're not just going to rehash tax law. No,
Mhm.
we're diving deep into the examiner themselves, studying the examiner.
That's the key difference, isn't it? We've gone through the strategy report, a really comprehensive one that basically distills 5 years of examiner feedback, 2019 right up to 2024.
5 years.
Yeah. And the whole point is to give you, the listener, a shortcut, a real strategic edge. Forget trying to memorize the entire tax code. It's overwhelming.
Tell me about it.
We're zeroing in on how you take the knowledge you already have and turn it into those professional, structured answers that consistently, score mark.
Right. And if you've ever had that horrible pit of the stomach dread, staring at a huge tax textbook, thinking I have to memorize every single date, every rate,
Yeah, we've all been there.
well, the core idea we found in this analysis, it's such a relief. It basically says you don't need to memorize every scrap of tax law. You need to understand how the examiner tests it.
Exactly. Think of the strategy guide like radar. It isolates precisely where students tend to stumble, where they fail, but maybe more importantly, where they succeed.
Okay.
So we're identifying those tested patterns, shining a light on the common traps, and some of these can easily cost you 10, maybe even more marks in just one exam.
10 marks. That's huge.
It is, and we're equipping you with the exact structural templates the ACCA marker is actually looking for, the ones they reward.
Because at the end of the day, you probably know the technical rules, or most of them. But the exam itself, it's like a very specific kind of technical communication.
Precisely.
So our aim here is focused, efficient, I'd even say ruthlessly efficient and competent exam readiness. When you sit down for those 3 hours, we want to cut down the mental effort, the cognitive load, and just maximize your mark per minute return.
Yeah, success in TX-UK often comes down to clarity and structure. It's usually not about knowing some obscure tax rate nobody's ever heard of. It's about communicating what you do know effectively.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Okay, start right there with that core idea, that foundational mindset. It's so easy to treat TX-UK like it's just a memory test, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Just trying to cram every rate, every date, every little relief tweak across income tax, CGT, VAT. Why is that approach just, well, fundamentally wrong for this level, the ACCA professional level?
Because the marks fundamentally aren't given for just spitting back facts. They're awarded for applying judgment, for showing you're working, and for communicating that application professionally.
Communication again.
Yeah, the source material, the report we analyze, it actually calls TX-UK a technical communication exam explicitly.
Yep.
So think of yourself less like a data entry clerk and more like a junior tax advisor. Your client, or in this case the examiner acting as the client, doesn't just want the final number. They need to understand why that number is correct and what the implications are.
So when we say technical communication, it means the presentation, the layout, the explanation.
Yeah.
That's just as important as getting the calculation right. If I say absolutely nail the income tax calculation but just scribble it down in a mess with no narrative, I'm shooting myself in the foot.
Completely, yes. And the examiner reports, they say this again and again. They complain about it. The markers want to give you credit,
Sure.
But if they have to spend ages hunting for your method or trying to guess which figure relates to which bit of the scenario, they just can't reliably award those method marks. The mark scheme is built to reward showing the rule, showing the method, and professionally communicating the result.
Which brings us neatly to this golden rule mentioned in the strategy guide. The SmartPass rule, they called it, for getting maximum credit.
That's it. The SmartPass rule. It basically sums up 5 years of what gets rewarded. It's clear layout plus brief explanation plus accurate reference.
Full marks.
All 3 parts needed.
Absolutely need all 3.
Yeah.
So let's say you calculate a capital gains tax gain. The calculation itself, neatly laid out, that's your clear layout.
Okay.
The brief explanation, just one short sentence, maybe justifies why you use a particular relief, like, say, gift relief.
Right.
And the accurate reference. That just anchors it. It might be the tax year or maybe even a specific section if you know it, but definitely the tax year.
That accurate reference seems so simple but so important. Just writing 2023-24 tax year at the top makes a difference.
Huge difference. It grounds the marker instantly.
Yeah.
But you asked why structure, like using a standard template, is so vital when you're under exam pressure. Is it just about being tidy?
Yeah, it's more than just neatness.
Oh, much more. It's like
Yeah.
a strategic life raft. Seriously. When that clock is ticking down and your stress levels are going up,
Yeah. You cannot afford to waste precious minutes figuring out how to lay out your answer. If you've already got a standard template, a proforma for income tax or CT or CGT, you just you save so much mental energy. You're not reinventing the wheel every time.
you fill in the blanks, basically.
Exactly. Fill in the blanks according to the scenario.
Yeah.
And crucially, that structure also acts like a checklist. It stops you forgetting things.
Preventing those omissions, those easy marks you kick yourself for missing later.
Precisely. The structure guides you. If you're doing income tax, the template reminds you. Always check the personal allowance restriction if income's high.
Right.
For CGT, always look for the annual exempt amount. Following that template, make sure you grab every standard deduction, every basic relief. You're essentially learning to speak the examiner's language. And if the marker sees that familiar professional structure, they mark faster and they mark with more confidence in your answer.
You're kind of weaponizing consistency, making it easy for them to give you marks.
That's a good way to put it. Weaponizing consistency. I like that.
Okay, so we've talked about the positive, the mindset, the structure. Let's flip it. Let's talk defense. The strategy guide pulled together 5 years of the most common, most costly mistakes students make.
Mm-hmm.
And these aren't necessarily obscure technical points, are they? They seem more fundamental. Things that, if you fix them, could immediately lift your score. These 5 might be the difference between a pass and a fail.
They absolutely can be. These are often the traps the examiner doesn't even necessarily intend to set. They just expect a certain professional standard. Avoiding these really can save your grade.
Okay, mistake number 1. Lack of clarity and missing workings. You mentioned the March 2023 report was quite direct about this.
Yeah, very direct. Candidates would often provide the correct final answer, the right number, but with, and this is almost a quote, no clear explanation of how they were derived.
Resulting in lost method marks.
Exactly. Lost method marks. Let's take a really common example.
Huh.
A company car benefit. Say the list price is £30,000. CO2 is 120 G-kilometers, which means a 28% taxable percentage, right? And maybe the employee paid £2,000 towards the cost.
Right, lots of elements.
Yeah, the final calculation isn't trivial. It's £30,000, 28% minus that £2,000 contribution, and maybe it needs prorating if they didn't have the car all year. If you just write down the final number, let's say £6,400, and maybe you made a small slip somewhere and it's wrong.
The marker has no idea how you got there. No partial credit.
0. But if you write, say, W1, car benefit calc, and then show £30,000, 28%, it will 8,400, then maybe 8,400, 2,000, 6,400, even if your final number is off because of a tiny math error.
I still get marks for picking the right price, the right percentage, applying the contribution.
Exactly. You get marks for the method. That's the smart fix the guide talks about. Label everything clearly, W1, W2, W3, and just add one brief line explaining what you're doing. You're turning invisible mental steps into visible mark-earning logic. Remember, the examiner rewards method.
Method, not just magic numbers. Got it. Okay, mistake number 2. Incorrect application, especially around dates and bands. The September 2022 report apparently flagged this as a constant issue. Misusing tax bands, reliefs, periods, even the wrong tax year.
This is just non-negotiable. Tax rules are locked to a specific tax year, 6th April to 5th April. Get that wrong, and everything can unravel.
How so?
Well, imagine a scenario. Maybe a company has a weird accounting period, say 9 months, that straddles 2 tax years. Or maybe an asset disposal happens just after 5th April, pushing the CGT into the next tax year. If you use the personal allowance for, say, 2024-25, when the question clearly states it's 2023-24, your whole calculation is just fundamentally wrong from the start.
Oof. I can see how that one error just cascades, right?
Yeah.
The personal allowance is wrong, so the basic rate band is wrong. The higher rate band, everything shifts.
Everything. So the smart fix here is absolute discipline. Highlight the dates in the question. Explicitly state the tax year right at the top of your answer. Tax year 2023-24. And use a layout template that forces you to confirm you're using the correct bands and allowances for that specific year.
Consistency is king again. Using the wrong date sounds like a sign you haven't properly anchored yourself in the scenario fact.
That's often exactly what it indicates, yes.
Okay, moving to mistake number 3. This one sounds more conceptual. Mixing income and capital taxes. The June 2021 report mentioned students confusing capital gains with income or taxing employment income like it was a capital gain.
Yeah, this is about understanding the fundamental boundaries in the tax system. They're distinct. Employment income, that's PAYE, national insurance. Trading income, Adjusted profit calculations, capital allowances maybe,
Yeah.
capital assets, things like shares, property, valuable items, they fall under the annual exempt amount, CGT rates.
So where do students typically go wrong here?
A common one is trying to claim capital allowances on assets that were actually sold. Capital allowances are for assets used in the trade, not assets being disposed of.
Right. Or maybe treating the sale of a valuable personal item, like an antique maybe, as
Yeah.
income instead of CGT.
That happens. Or take the chattels rule. That's a classic trap. If you sell a chattel, basically a tangible movable asset, for proceeds between £3,000 and £6,000, there's a special rule to restrict the gain. But if you don't even identify it as a chattel first,
You just apply the normal CGT rules and miss the specific relief.
exactly, you miss the relief, miss the marks. The smart fix is simple but effective. Use clear, defined headings in your answer. Section A, income tax liability. Section B, capital gains tax. Just show the marker. You know these are different pots. You understand the boundaries.
Clear boundaries.
Yeah.
Okay. Mistake number 4 sounds like an efficiency killer. Missing the requirement. The December 2023 report said students often did calculations that weren't even asked for, just wasting time.
Yeah, or sometimes even worse.
Worse.
They skipped the written parts that were asked for, like providing advice or comparing options or explaining something.
Oh, that's just leaving marks on the table, especially since those written bits are often quicker marks, aren't they?
Devastatingly so. Imagine a 20-mark question. Maybe 14 marks are for calculating a complex CGT liability, and 6 marks are for advise the client on how to time the disposal of a second asset to maximize relief.
Okay.
If you spend, say, 25 minutes getting that 14-mark calculation absolutely perfect, but then only leave yourself 2 minutes to scribble down some advice for the other 6 marks, you've completely mismanaged your effort.
But hang on, isn't it risky not to get the calculation 100% right? I mean, it's a technical paper. Shouldn't the calculation come first?
It's not about prioritizing advice over the calculation. It's about giving each part the attention the marks dictate. That calculation might be long, complex, easy to make a small error in. The advice part, often quicker marks if you know the principles. It requires structure, application of knowledge, but maybe not pages of figures.
So the smart fix.
Underline the command words in the question paper. Calculate, advise, compare, explain. If it says advise, you must give advice with a reason, a recommendation. The mantra the guide suggests is, don't just write what you know, write exactly what's asked.
Right, what's asked. Makes sense.
Oh.
Which flows right into the final big one, mistake number 5. Time mismanagement. September 2021 report highlighted students getting bogged down in heavy calculations.
And then leaving the easier, often written parts completely blank or just rushed at the end.
It links back to that mark allocation point, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That complex CGT calculation with multiple reliefs might take you, say, 12 minutes, potentially earn 4 marks. That's 3 minutes per mark.
Right.
But a written bit, like listing the pros and cons of VAT registration, that might take you just 2 minutes, but be worth 4 marks. That's 30 seconds per mark.
Wow, the return on time is completely different.
Massively different. You have to allocate your time based on the marks available, not just how difficult you find the calculation.
That sounds painful, though, doing the really hard calculation part and then running out of time for the quick ones.
It's agonizing, but preventable. The solution is structure and discipline. Use the guideline, 1.8 minutes per mark. For Section C, those two 20-mark questions mean roughly 72 minutes total, so about 35 minutes per question.
Okay.
If you hit 35 minutes on that first Section C question and you haven't even started the written advice part yet, you have to be ruthless. Stop the calculation, quickly structure the advice using bullet points, grab those easier marks, and then move on to the next question. Planning the structure first, maybe even leaving physical space for the written bits, is key to not omitting them when the pressure mounts.
Right. Enough doom and gloom about mistakes.
Let's talk about the good stuff. We've covered the defense, now for the offense. What specific things, behaviors, structures, ways of communicating consistently signal competence to the examiner and just rake in the marks?
Okay, the positive side. Reward number 1, which sounds like the absolute bedrock, is structured layouts. December 2022 report. The best answers were clearly laid out using structured working, with calculations under appropriate headings. So this is more than just neat handwriting.
Oh, way more. It's about following professional convention. Think about what a client would expect to see in a report.
Right.
Your answer should ideally start with a clear, formal heading, something like, Client, A. Smith, Income tax computation tax year 2023-24.
Professional from the outset.
Exactly. Then you need clear, explicitly labeled subtotals as you go. Things like total trading income, net statutory income, taxable income, and that final tax liability figure. It needs to stand out.
Yeah.
Box it, double underline it, make it unmissable.
So when the marker sees that familiar logical flow,
They instantly relax a bit. They assume competence. They start marking from a positive perspective rather than having to decode a mess.
and that structure naturally leads into reward number 2. Accurate use of proformas and templates. September 2023 report confirmed top students consistently use standard templates for IT, CGT, CT, VAT.
Templates are basically the scaffolding for your knowledge. They hold it all together under pressure. Take the standard income tax computation proforma. It forces you, step by step, through salary, then benefits, then trading income, property, savings dividends, deductions, calculating the personal allowance, applying the tax bands.
You physically can't forget a major section if you follow the template.
Pretty much. The high-scoring candidates don't try to reinvent the layout every time. They learn the model template, they internalize it, and then they just populate it with the specifics from the scenario. It automatically prevents those silly, frustrating omissions we talked about earlier.
Okay, number 3. Brief explanations accompanying figures. June 2021 report said correct numbers got full credit more reliably when they had short, accurate explanations with them. So, turning a number into actual justified advice.
That's exactly it. This is where you elevate your answer from just calculation to professional communication. Instead of just showing the personal allowance being reduced, you add a little note. PA restricted by £1 for every £2 ANI exceeds 100,000 pounds.
Simple, but shows you know the rule.
Or if you're offsetting a trading loss of sex offset versus general income CY under S64 ITA 2007 as elected, one clear sentence using the right terms proves you didn't just guess or fluke the number. You applied a specific rule. That's reliable mark earning territory.
Okay. Reward number 4 is about professional use of dates and tax years. March 2024 report, very recent, highlighted top candidates nailing the correct tax year, time limits, filing dates, payment deadline.
Tax is fundamentally built on time limits. It's a legal framework. Losing marks because you forgot the self-assessment payment deadline 31st January after the tax year ends, that's just a preventable tragedy.
Right.
So, when you're discussing anything administrative, you must use specific dates and phrases. Mentioning the 4-year time limit for claiming certain loss reliefs, perhaps, or referencing the deadline for making a PPR claim after selling a property. These details are often easy, almost rote-learned marks, but they signal real professional awareness.
Don't throw away the easy marks. Okay, and finally, reward number 5. Direct and concise written advice. December 2021 report liked short, commercially focused answers, matching the scenario, maybe using bullet points instead of dense paragraphs. Here's where it gets really interesting, especially for those Section C questions, right?
Absolutely. If the question asks you to advise the client on the best loss relief strategy, please don't write a 3-paragraph essay. Use clear headings. Option 1, offset against current year income. Option 2, carry forward loss.
Good.
Then, under each heading, use succinct bullet points for the pros and cons. Pro, immediate tax refund, cash flow boost. Con, might waste the personal alliance this year. Something like that.
Quick, clear, to the point.
Exactly. Markers aren't looking for literary flair here. They want structured clarity. A 5-mark advice section. That probably warrants 5 clear, well-justified bullet points, maybe a concluding sentence with your recommendation. The goal is maximum clarity, showing you understand the commercial impact of the tax choices.
Right, we've got the principles, avoid the bad, do the good. Now let's get tactical. Pure execution. How do you manage those 180 minutes across the 3 different sections? Because each one feels like it needs a slightly different approach, a different mindset.
Absolutely. And honestly, time management. It's probably the single biggest predictor of passing or failing this exam. You let one complex Section C question completely derail your timing.
And you end up leaving easy marks on the table in Section A or B.
Precisely. You have to be disciplined, almost ruthlessly disciplined with the clock.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. Section A, objective test questions, the OTs. 15 questions, 2 marks each, so 30 marks total. The focus here feels like precision, recall, maybe speed.
It's definitely speed and precision. The target time here should be absolute maximum 35 minutes, ideally closer to 30. That's only 2 minutes per question. If you're spending 3 or 4 minutes on one OT, you're already falling behind schedule.
And the main risk here, What trips people up?
And usually it's shaky knowledge of key thresholds, dates, or specific rules. Things like NIC classes and rates, VAT registration limits, penalty amounts, basic CGT rules like identifying a chattel. These are often testing straightforward recall.
So the strategy has to be quick fire. What if you just draw a blank on one?
Don't dwell. Seriously. Use the elimination technique. You can usually discount 2 of the 4 multiple choice options pretty quickly as being obviously wrong.
Okay, narrows it down.
Narrows it to a 50-50 guess if you're really stuck. Make your best guess. Maybe flag the question electronically to come back to if you have time at the very end, but crucially, move on. Don't let one tricky OT sink your timing for the whole paper. And definitely memorize those key thresholds: cold AIA limit, VAT registration, basic PA, AEA.
Move on.
Got it.
Okay, Section B, OT case scenarios. Still OTs, still 30 marks total, usually 3 cases with 5 questions each. But the field changes completely, right? You get a mini scenario, a client profile.
Exactly. The focus shifts here from pure recall to scenario logic, application within context.
Target time, still around 30-35 minutes.
Yeah, about the same timing. But the big risk here, highlighted in the December 2021 report, for example, is overlooking crucial details hidden in the scenario text. These aren't isolated questions anymore. They test if you can read the fine print and connect the dots.
Can you give an example of how missing context could bite you here?
Sure. Let's say the scenario is about a client selling their main home. Buried in the text, it mentions they spent 3 years working abroad but stayed UK domiciled.
Ah, okay.
If you miss that detail about the period of absence, your private residence relief calculation will be wrong. Or maybe the scenario mentions the client is a very high earner. That should immediately trigger you to think, oh, personal allowance restriction. If you don't factor that into an income tax question later in the same case.
You'll get that question wrong too. Errors snowball.
Exactly. So the strategy is non-negotiable. Read the entire case scenario first, before you even look at question 1. Highlight key fact states, income levels, residency status, anything unusual. You need to put on your tax advisor hat and understand the whole picture.
Because the questions often link together.
They absolutely do. Miscalculate something fundamental like adjusted net income in the first question of the case, and you could easily get the next 4 questions wrong too, costing you maybe 10 marks just like that.
Ouch. Okay, read first, then answer. Finally, section C, the big one. Constructed response. 40 marks, usually 2 20-mark questions. This is where structure and advice really come to the fore, isn't it?
Absolutely paramount. And the time allocation here is the most critical of the whole exam. You've got roughly 70 minutes, maybe 72, based on 1.8 mince mark for these 40 marks. So 35, 36 minutes per question. You need to stick to that religiously, leaving maybe a small buffer at the end for review.
And the key to success here, as the reports consistently say,
structure, structure, structure. Well-structured answers, using clear headings, breaking calculations into workings, W1, W2, and applying the rules with those brief justifications we talked about.
And the strategy starts before you even write the answer proper. You said outline first.
Yes. Spend the first 2 or 3 minutes of your 35 minutes just planning. Sketch out your headings. If it's an individual's tax liability question, your plan might be intro, employment income, W1, trading income, W2, CGT calc, W3, overall tax comp, advice conclusion.
Creates a roadmap.
It's your blueprint. It ensures you cover everything. Critically separate your detailed calculations in the workings, W1, W2, W3, from the final computation schedule and any written advice section. This stops you getting lost in the numbers and forgetting the narrative.
Hey, just remind us about that mandatory advice strategy for Section C.
If that command word advise appears anywhere in the question requirement, and it often does, you must provide a justified recommendation. It's not optional.
So not just calculations.
No. A classic Section C might ask you to compare, say, claiming a trading loss against this year's income versus carrying it forward. You have to calculate the tax impact of both options clearly, and then write a sentence or two saying which is better for this specific client. Based on their situation mentioned in the scenario, maybe they need cash now, or maybe they expect higher profits next year. A calculation alone will never score full marks on an advisory question. Never. Okay, so to really help focus that final revision push, we looked at what the strategy guide called the topic tracker. It basically synthesized data from the last 10 sittings combined with a smart focus map to pinpoint where the examiner consistently puts the big marks.
Right. These are the areas you absolutely cannot afford to be weak on. The high-frequency, high-value topics. If you haven't got a decent grasp of these, passing gets much harder.
Much harder. Let's break down the core 4.
Go for it.
First, income tax, particularly employment income. This is almost guaranteed to be a major part of a 20-mark Section C question. You absolutely have to know benefits in kind inside out.
Like company cars.
Company cars are huge. Calculating the benefit using the CO2 percentage, remembering the rules around capital contributions, like the 3,200-pound limit that often tricks people up, the private fuel benefit charge, all classic territory. Plus, you need to be comfortable with the savings and dividend income bands and how pension contribution relief works, especially the tapering for high earners.
And we're not just talking basic rates here, are we? It's the tricky application in complex scenarios.
Exactly that, like calculating the maximum allowable pension contribution for someone with high income and maybe some non-employment income too, or dealing correctly with that personal allowance restriction when adjusted net income goes over £100,000. These points get tested repeatedly because they need you to apply multiple rules together.
Okay, income tax is core. What's next?
Capital gains tax, CGT. Very frequently tested, often in Section C, and usually involving reliefs.
What are the key CGT areas?
You need to be really fluent with some complex mechanics. Things like part disposals, where you have to correctly apportion the original cost using the A plus B formula.
Right.
The chattels rules those specific rules for tangible movable assets, which students often just forget exist. Private residence relief, PPR that's massive, often tested with periods of absence, maybe deemed occupation, and crucially, letting relief interacting with it.
That PCR and letting relief combination sounds tricky.
It is. It's a common trap highlighted in reports. You have to calculate the gain, apply the PPR for the time they live there, plus the final 9 months. Then, if part was let out, you calculate letting relief. But critically, you have to remember it's restricted to the lowest of 3 figures. The PPR already given, the gain related to the letting period, or £40,000. Miss that lowest of rule.
And you lose method marks instantly.
Instantly. You also need to know the main relief, gift holdover relief and business asset disposal relief, formerly entrepreneur's relief, and rollover relief are common.
Okay, CGT complexity noted. Third major area.
Corporation tax, CT.
What's key here? Adjusted profits.
Definitely. You have to be confident starting with profit before tax, adding back disallowed expenses, depreciation, client entertaining, fines, and maybe deducting non-trading income to get to the adjusted trading profit. That's fundamental. Capital allowances are also crucial here. But the real technical trap, the one that catches so many out, the associated companies rule.
Yes. Briefly, why is that such a consistent mark earner for the examiner? Why test it so often?
Because the main corporation tax rate, and crucially the thresholds for the small profits rate, £50, and the main rate, $250K, depend on the number of associated companies. If a company has, say, 1 associated company, those profit thresholds are halved. 2 associated companies, divided by 3.
Right.
If a student fails to spot that associated company relationship in the scenario, maybe overlooking a parent-subsidiary link, or companies under common control, their entire CT calculation, the rates they use, the marginal relief maybe, it's all going to be wrong. It tests careful reading and understanding group structures.
A fundamental point with big consequences. Okay, and the fourth key area.
VAT, value-added tax.
How is VAT usually tested? Is it complex calculations?
Less often complex calculations, more often the administrative side and advisory points. Things like knowing the compulsory registration threshold, £85,000 taxable turnover in a rolling 12 months, understanding the pros and cons and the mechanics of the flat rate scheme, group VAT registration rules, and maybe calculating penalties for errors or late filing.
So more about applying rules and giving advice.
Exactly. This is often where those written advice marks pop up in Section C, advising a new business on whether they must register or maybe if they should register voluntarily, explaining the cash flow benefits of using the cash accounting scheme, that sort of practical application.
Okay, those 4 areas, IT, CGT, CT, VAT, are the core battleground. Now, how do we make this really actionable for revision? The strategy guide detailed 5 key SmartPass revision tasks.
Yes, 5 concrete things to do. Task 1. Really master that full income tax computation template. Don't just look at it, do it. Practice maybe 3 full past paper questions until laying it out becomes second nature muscle memory.
Okay, practice the IT proforma. Task 2.
Tackle at least 2 complex capital gains tax scenarios. Find ones that involve multiple layers, maybe a part disposal combined with applying 2 different reliefs, like PPR and gift relief on the same asset disposal. Push yourself on the tricky ones.
Get comfortable with complexity. Task 3.
Capital allowances. Solve 3 solid problems. Remember, CAs feed into CT, but also potentially trading income for sole traders and property income calculations.
Right.
Focus on getting the annual investment allowance, AIA, right? First year allowances, FYAs, and the normal written down allowances, WDAs. Pay special attention to the specific rules for cars and for integral features in buildings. They have their own pools and rates.
Cars and integral features noted. Task 4.
Written advice practice. Write one short advisory answer for a typical VAT scenario, like registration, and one for a loss relief scenario, like choosing current year offset versus carry forward. Time yourself maybe 5 minutes each. Practice using those concise bullet points for pros and cons.
Practice communicating concisely. And task 5.
Memorize the key admin deadlines, payment dates, filing dates for different taxes. These are such easy marks to get if you know them, and so frustrating to lose if you don't. Make flashcards if you have to.
Okay, 5 clear tasks.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this analysis is backed up by ACCA's own technical articles. They kind of give the game away sometimes.
They really do. The strategy guide specifically analyzed key articles. For instance, one was literally titled something like, How to Avoid the 4 Most Common Mistakes in TX. The examiner themselves pointed out students ignoring time limits, mixing up CGT and income tax, and interestingly, frequently forgetting about national insurance contributions.
Forgetting NICs.
Really?
Apparently so.
Yeah.
The immediate takeaway is, if you have a self-employed individual in a question, always calculate Class 2 and Class 4 NICs. If you have an employed person, remember Class 1, both employees and employers' portions. Students focus so hard on the income tax sometimes, they just leave these easy NIC marks sitting there.
Wow. Okay. Any other article insights? Another really important one focused specifically on capital allowances. The examiner highlighted how often students fail to correctly prorate the annual investment allowance.
Prorate the AIA.
Yeah. If a company has, say, a short or long accounting period, maybe 9 months or 15 months, the £1 million AIA limit needs to be adjusted proportionally. 1 mitter, 912 for a 9-month period.
Another timing trap. A student might know the £1 million perfectly, but if they miss the fact it's only a 9-month period in the scenario.
They apply the full £1 million, get the CAs wrong, which means the CT calculation is wrong. Multiple marks lost downstream from one oversight.
So the professional way to show would be?
You'd write something like, annual investment allowance available is £750,000, £1 million by 912, due to the 9-month accounting period. You're explicitly showing you've spotted the time issue and applied the rule correctly. That's demonstrating mastery.
Okay, this leads us perfectly into the final layer. We've covered what to study, how to structure it, the mistakes to avoid. Now let's talk about that final polish. Communicating like a tax professional. The strategy guide had a great line. Good answers show the right figure. Great answers show why it's right. This is about using the language, the phrasing the examiner expects.
Exactly. It's about making the marker feel like they're reading something produced by a competent junior advisor in a firm, not just a student regurgitating rules under pressure. And consistency in structure and phrasing across different tax heads is really key here.
So let's get specific. For income tax, what does that required structure look like in terms of flow and language?
It needs to be that consistent step-by-step calculation we discussed. Always start clearly. Net employment income, salary plus benefits, allowable expenses. Then trading income, property income. Then savings and dividend income. Clearly label and calculate total income. Then, critically, calculate adjusted net income, ANI. Explicitly show this, if it's near £100, to check for that personal allowance restriction. Use professional phrasing like, net employment income is calculated as 6 after deducting allowable mileage expenses of 1. Show your steps logically.
Okay, what about for CGT? What specific phrasing signals competence there?
When you use the annual exempt amount, don't just deduct the number. State the rule briefly. The disposal qualifies for the annual exempt amount of £6,000 for 2,324, reducing the chargeable gain to 6 months. It shows you know why you're deducting it. If an asset was inherited, use the correct terminology for the base cost. The base cost for CGT is the probate value at the date of death, not the original cost to the deceased.
Just little phrases that show understanding, and the overall CGT structure itself.
Rigorous. Per asset ideally. Start with proceeds, making sure to deduct incidental costs of disposal, like legal fees. Less. Allowable cost, or the probate value market value rule. That gives you the gain or loss. Then apply any relevant reliefs like PPR, gift relief, rollover relief. Then apply the annual exempt amount. Finally, calculate the tax, making sure to use the correct CGT rates. Per Henfin, 20% for most assets, 1,828% for residential property, depending on the individual's income band.
A very clear, logical flow. And corporation tax. Are there similar key language markers, maybe around capital allowances or profits?
Definitely. For capital allowances, the standard professional phrasing is something like, capital allowances calculated in WX are deducted from the adjusted trading profit to arrive at taxable total profits. It links the calculation to its purpose. When dealing with the profit thresholds and rates, especially mention the associated companies rule explicitly if it applies. As the company has two associated companies, the upper and lower limits, 250K and 50K, are divided by 3, resulting in revised limits of 83,333 and 16,667 respectively. That one sentence proves you've grasped that complex but crucial role.
Shows you didn't just guess the rate. Okay, this loops back perfectly to those advisory templates. VAT and loss relief seem like prime areas where showing professional communication earns marks.
Absolutely. Take VAT advice for a new business. You need to state the registration rule clearly using the actual numbers. Compulsory registration is required if taxable turnover exceeds the threshold of £85,000 in any rolling 12-month period or is expected to do so in the next 30 days. If you're recommending, say, the cash accounting scheme, link it directly to the client's likely needs. The cash accounting scheme could be beneficial initially, as output VAT is only paid over to HMRC when payment is received from customers, which significantly aids cash flow for a new startup.
Clear, numerical, and client-focused. What about a loss relief comparison?
You need that structured comparison. Calculate the tax saving under each option, maybe offsetting the loss against total income of the current or prior year versus carrying it forward against future profits of the same trade. Use the legislative references, if you can, confidently, like S64 ITA 2007 for current prior year offset. Then contrast them clearly. Use phrases like, offsetting against current year income provides an immediate tax refund of $6, but may result in wasting the personal allowance if other income is low. Then contrast with, carrying the loss forward preserves the PA this year and saves tax at potentially higher rates if future profits are substantial, which aligns with the client's growth projections.
So it's calculation, comparison, and then that final recommendation.
Yes. That's the ultimate sign of a professional answer, the justified conclusion that ties it all together.
The professional closing line.
Exactly. It needs to synthesize your findings. Something concise but strategic, like, given the client's stated goal of maximizing immediate cash flow, offsetting the loss in the current year, option A is recommended, despite the partial wastage of the personal allowance. It shows you didn't just crunch numbers, you thought about the client's situation and provided clear, strategic insight. That's what markers reward, that confidence and professionalism. Hashtag tag outro.
So after that deep dive, what's the big takeaway? What does this all mean for your final prep for TX-UK?
I think the message from 5 years of examiner feedback is incredibly clear, isn't it?
It really is.
Passing this exam, it's fundamentally a test of technical communication. It's about clarity, it's about structure, it's about professional layout. It's about making the marker's job easy so they can actually see and reward all that technical knowledge you've worked so hard to acquire. Couldn't agree more. We've walked through the 5 biggest mistakes to avoid, we've highlighted the 5 key things the examiner consistently rewards, and we've given you those structural blueprints, those templates, for tackling every section of the paper. Just remember, you're not only calculating taxes, you're acting like a professional, solving problems using structure and clear communication.
And all the detailed information we covered today, those synthesized topic trackers showing high-frequency areas, the full model answer templates that really demonstrate those professional layouts we talked about, and the really granular breakdown of what the examiners have been saying in their reports for the last 5 years. That all comes from one incredibly useful resource. We've given you the distilled strategy here today, but for that really comprehensive final preparation, you probably want the full manual.
Yeah, absolutely. To get that full detailed strategic guidance, including those complete actionable model answers for income tax, CGT, corporation tax that you can adapt, we strongly recommend you download the full strategy report. It's available right now from the SmartPass store on Gumroad.
This really could be your final strategic advantage for nailing the TX-UK paper. And the easiest way to find it. Just head over to the SmartPass Instagram page. The link to the Gumroad store with the full report and all their other focus study resources is right there in the bio. It's designed specifically to help you translate your knowledge into that exam-ready structure the examiner wants to see.
And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with, something to mull over as you revise. If the examiners have, in effect, already told you how students fail by publishing these reports year after year. What assumptions about your current study methods do you maybe need to abandon right now?
Hmm, good question.
Maybe it's time to stop relying only on memorizing facts and figures and start truly mastering strategic presentation and communication.
Structure your answers like a pro. Go pass that exam. Thank you so much for joining us on this critical deep dive.
Good luck, everyone.
We'll see you next time.